All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty powerful, maybe even a little provocative idea. It's one that completely reframes one of the biggest questions we all ask. What is the point of all this pain? So let's get right into it.
Suffering, we all go through it. It's just a fundamental part of being human, right? But what if? What if it's not just random, meaningless noise? What if there's something more to it?
Is it just the universe being cruel? Or totally indifferent to us? Just a string of bad luck we have to grit our teeth and get through? This is a question that philosophers and great thinkers have been wrestling with for, well, forever.
Okay, but let's just flip that on its head for a second. What if we look at it from a completely different angle? What if suffering actually has a function? And what if it's not just a function, but a kind of code, like an algorithm that's designed to install something really crucial deep inside our consciousness?
And that's where this pretty radical idea comes in. It's called the suffering algorithm. And really, it's a powerful new way of looking at and maybe even reinterpreting our most difficult experiences.
So here's the core of it. This theory basically proposes that pain isn't a bug in the human system, it's a feature. It's a deliberate mechanism and it has a very specific output: to grow empathy and our ethical intelligence. You could almost think of it as a kind of operating system for moral evolution.
Okay, so to really get how this algorithm is supposed to work, the theory asks us to think about reality in a few different layers, or dimensions, if you will. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, you've got 3D reality. Now, the easiest way to think about this is like the computer's hardware. It's the physical, tangible world all around us, right? It's the stage where everything plays out. And this is the realm where we experience that concrete material loss, losing a person, a home, a job. This is the physical input for the whole system.
So, if 3D is the hardware, then next we've got the software, 4D reality. This is the dimension of time. Think of it as your lifespan, your personal collection of memories, feelings, all your experiences. And according to this theory, this is the level where that suffering algorithm is actually running. It's taking all that raw data of loss from our 3D world and it's processing it over the entire course of our lives.
So, what's the point of all this processing, right? Well, that brings us to 5D reality, the payoff. This is supposed to be a higher state of being, a more evolved consciousness. It's the destination, the place where all those ethical lessons, all that empathy that was forged in the fire of 4E suffering finally gets realized. It's like the big system upgrade to a higher moral intelligence.
Okay, so we've got the hardware, we've got the software, and we've got the final upgrade. But what's the actual code? What makes this whole program run? Well, the theory points to one single central mechanism.
Shared suffering. That's it. This is the engine that drives the entire algorithm. See, it's not just about the pain you endure all by yourself. It's about the suffering we see in other people and the losses we go through together. That shared experience is what the theory says is the most powerful catalyst for programming genuine compassion into us.
And why does that work? Well, it happens because when you experience a really profound loss, that rigid sense of me versus the world, it just starts to crumble. Your ego, that feeling that you're this separate, isolated individual, it gets broken down. And in that brokenness, that's where we find a real connection to everyone else who has ever been broken too.
Let's just look at this comparison for a second. On the one hand, you've got individual pain. It's raw, it's visceral, and man, it can be so isolating, right? It just traps you inside your own head. But when that pain is shared or even just witnessed by someone else, something kind of magical happens. It transforms into shared compassion. You see your own struggle reflected in another person, and all of a sudden you're not alone anymore. And that recognition, that feeling of interconnectedness, that's what turns the raw, chaotic data of pain into structured, meaningful moral information.
So how does this programming actually happen? The theory breaks it down into about 4 steps. First, it starts when you witness someone else's pain. Then, almost instinctively, your brain connects that to a time you felt a similar kind of loss. And from there, this powerful recognition just clicks into place. Hey, we are all in this together. And that final recognition, that's what blossoms into real, genuine, empathic concern, which is the absolute foundation of ethical behavior.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does looking at suffering through this kind of lens even matter? Well, it's because it can fundamentally change our entire relationship with pain.
And this framework really does have a wide appeal. If you're into Stoicism, for example,
It frames suffering not as some pointless thing to endure, but as a necessary tool for growth. It gives meaning to our struggles. It suggests a higher purpose. And hey, for anyone who's interested in emotional intelligence, it offers this absolutely fascinating model for where empathy even comes from, not as just a feeling, but as a complex system programmed by shared experience.
When you boil it all down, the entire concept can be distilled into one single powerful idea. To gain access to the highest levels of compassion, of real moral understanding, you have to pay the price of admission. And that price, it's pain.
So let's leave you with this one final thought to chew on. It's so easy to see our own suffering as just a burden, right? A personal tragedy that's ours alone. But what if? What if it's more than that? What if every single moment of your pain is actually crucial data being fed into this massive collective algorithm that is slowly but surely programming a more compassionate, more ethical world for all of us?